In this video, you'll learn to manage detail in Camera Raw. Open image 1545 in Bridge by double-clicking on its thumbnail. Incidentally, this was taken in Rome. I've already developed the photo using the basic parameters and refined it using tone curves. The next task is to manage detail, so click this third icon. Detail is broken down into two groups, sharpening and noise reduction. In many ways, these are opposite tasks. Noise reduction is accomplished by blurring the image, and sharpening is accomplished by accentuating the edges in the image. Before we get started with either task, it's necessary to view the image at 100% magnification. You can use the controls over here in the corner to zoom in. But 100% magnification depends upon how many pixels are in your image. So it's also necessary to decide upon your final output size prior to managing detail. To do so, click on this hyperlink at the bottom of the Camera Raw interface. Here I've chosen to resize to fit with 1200 pixels on the long side. I'll change that by unchecking this box. And this will default to the original size, which is about 9.5 megapixels here. So now 100% is zoomed in even more. Use the hand tool and pan over to the side where you can see this sundial. I can see a lot of color noise in the building here. There's a lot of patches of various colors, greens and reds and some blues. I know logically that the image shouldn't have all that splotchiness to it. This is really just a gray piece of masonry without any color. So what we're seeing here is noise. And we can also see that over here in the sky. There's sort of a graininess that appears. We can reduce that by increasing this color slider. And I like to start with extremes. Go all the way to the right and see the effect. And then if it's too much, you can rein it in by dragging the slider a bit down. That is, to the left. In this case, I think I'll leave it at 100%. We've eliminated a lot of the color noise that we see especially on the masonry. Color detail is used to limit the effect of this color slider. Let's see if it has any effect here. There's 0 and there's 100. It's very subtle. I can hardly perceive it. I'll just leave this in the middle somewhere. Let's try decreasing the noise that occurs in the luminance, that is, in the grayscale light intensity. Drag this all the way over to 100, and we see a rather dramatic effect. We don't see any noise, but everything looks much blurrier. The sky looks continuous. We don't have that graininess anymore, and the masonry looks good also. The problem is we can hardly read these numbers here. Luminance detail is used to limit the effect of this slider. At 0, it has no effect, and everything is blurred. As you increase luminance detail, you're starting to see more of the detail in the image, but you're trading that off against the blurriness that is solving the noise problem. Luminance contrast is even more subtle. There's 100% and there's 0. Again, it's hard to perceive. I'll leave this somewhere in the middle. And now that I've done this, I'm going to decrease luminance down a bit from the maximum, and perhaps decrease color a bit also. So far, so good. We've eliminated most of the noise in the image, but in doing so, we've effectively blurred the image, and we've lost the crispness associated with each of these edges. We can restore that by sharpening the image. Increase sharpening all the way to 150, which is the maximum, and you'll see the edges reappear. Again, before and after. It's fairly dramatic. Radius can be used to limit the effect. So there's the maximum radius and the minimum. So as you increase radius, it looks blurrier. So with a smaller radius, you're sharpening smaller areas. With detail, what we're doing when we increase detail is we're asking it to sharpen smaller and smaller areas. And this is undesirable in this particular image because we're getting sharpening that's actually happening within this masonry texture. I'm going to leave detail set to 0. Masking can be used to limit where the sharpening is occurring, and you can visualize this by holding down the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on the PC, and you'll get a grayscale representation of what the masking is. So what we're doing is we're sharpening only in the white areas. So this can be used to limit the amount of sharpening. Again, I'll decrease the total amount of sharpening a bit, and then zoom out to look at the whole image by double-clicking on the Hand tool. Let's look at a before and after view now. I'll type P before and P after, and I can't really perceive it here when I'm looking at the whole image. Let's go into 100% by double-clicking on the Zoom tool. I'll use the Hand tool to pan over again. So before and after. And we've improved the amount of detail in the image by balancing noise reduction and sharpening.